get that on video.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, so it's all good and all to talk about like travel because that's the happy part of our lives. Let's talk about like the old life.
Okay.
Yeah, so all right. So first of all, like what did you do back in the States?
I worked in the film industry in Los Angeles. I worked in both the like pre-production development world where I was either like an assistant or something like that to a producer or what have you. It's more on the creative side. And then I also did a lot of production work as well. So like being on set, like actually like making the product. And so I did that for about 6 years. Did like the pre-production development realm, so like working with scripts, so like all the things that happen before the project actually goes into production. I worked that for a while, and then I've also worked on set on production for mainly indie films. Worked a couple TV shows. And let's see. Oh, and then I also worked for a advertising company as a production coordinator, where we made promotional videos for Russia.
Promotional videos for Russia?
Yeah, so like we were an advertising company. We had one client, the country of Russia, and so whenever Russia wanted to host like a world event, like World Cup, Olympics, World's Fair, one of those big things that they have to like bid for, we would create the promotional videos to help them in their bid. So like, come to Russia, we have all of this cool stuff, you definitely want to host your event here, kind of a thing. And so that's what we did.
No, so so the story I wanted to hear from you, I wanted to catch on camera, was Forrest Whitaker.
Well, the first job I got after moving to LA, after college, was working for Forrest Whitaker and his company. He formed his own production company, a little one, where they would produce films, TV projects, mainly that. And it was really weird how it came about. I was fresh off the boat, like in LA for the first time, going around with my resume, applying for jobs, and I see this listing for production company, and so I apply, and they call me in for an interview, and I go down to the interview, and I realize that it's a set. There's trailers all over the place, camera crews, all of that. And I was like, oh, cool. What's going on here? And I go in, I meet who I'm supposed to meet, and we go into the trailer, and the interview begins. And I'm interviewing with the vice president of the company and one of the assistants. And I literally bombed this interview. Like, I've probably only been to like 2 interviews before this. I remember they asked me a question and I literally froze. Like, my brain just went blank. I could not speak words, and I was like, bless their hearts. They smiled, they laughed, they took pity, they were like, it's all good, don't worry, don't stress, and it helped. But I went the rest of the interview all right, but I remember walking out of there being like, I fucked that. Like, there's no way in hell I'm getting that job. And as I leave the interview, I see Forrest Whitaker, the actor, come walking by. And they call him over, the vice president calls him over, and they're like, hey, so I just want you to know, this job is actually working for Forrest, this is his company, so, I just wanted to introduce you guys. And so here I am, just bombed an interview that I had no idea who it was for, and I'm meeting Forrest, so I just feel even more like shit. I'm like, crap, I can't believe I just bombed an interview for Forrest Whitaker's company. This would have been perfect. 3 days later, I'm walking around downtown with my roommate. I get a call. It's that vice president, and she's like, hey, we want you, we want you to start next week. Or, do you want the job? And I was like, oh, hell yes. So I started, and I worked for that company for the next year or so. Did a lot of script work. So agents and producers and stuff would send scripts to his company to try to get Forrest's interest, either as a producer, a director, an actor, and he would give me the script, and I would read it and essentially do what we call coverage, which is like a book report essentially. So I would go through and I would examine it from all angles, from it's like a creative standpoint. So like the story, the characters, does the script work? What works, what doesn't, all of this. And then I also had to look at the financials. Like, is this like a financially feasible project for what we want to do? Does it align with Forrest's personality, his morals? We don't want to do a project about something that he doesn't necessarily agree with or vibe with. So I had to keep all of that stuff in mind, and I would do these coverage reports and then hand it off to him, and that would be that. During that time, he actually was producing and starring in a spin-off of the network TV show Criminal Minds. So it was called Criminal Minds Suspect Behavior or something like that. And so I was going through and reading the scripts for that and giving my notes, and got to be on set and kind of see things going on there. So it really, as a first job, kind of opened my eyes and gave me a lot of experience. He was probably the coolest guy I met in Hollywood, or at least worked for. Executives, producers in Hollywood, they tend to be, how to say this, petulant little children. They yell, they scream, they bitch, they moan. Some of them act like they can't even wipe their own ass without their assistant or something like that. Not Forrest. Forrest was always calm, always soft-spoken, always treating everyone with the utmost respect, no matter what level you were at. Even when it was, we had to get down to business and things were serious, he never was demeaning, he never yelled, he never cursed. It was so amazing to see, because my head had been filled with all of these images of the asshole boss always yelling, Devil Wears Prada kind of shit. And to have that, I felt really grateful. And I realized after I moved on from that company and got jobs to other places that unfortunately not everyone is as cool as Forrest Whitaker.